Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start with the story of the neighbors who pestered our OP in every way, but in the end, he laid it all out. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You want to be loud? I'll get louder. I had this one neighbor when I was in Arizona. She and her husband lived above us and would bang on the walls, play loud music, and yell and scream at each other all hours of the day and night. I filed a complaint with our courtesy patrol one night after 3 months of this to absolutely no avail. The office did take action and courtesy patrol did too, but they refused to change. So I went back to the office with a plan. I had a small but powerful Bluetooth speaker at my disposal, and I warned the office what I was going to do. And believe it or not, they said this was fine as long as I didn't leave it on for hours on end. These people in the office were awesome in more ways than one. Now, important side note, our neighbors were super religious, so the next time they started in with the loud noises, I took my speaker, duct taped it to the bottom of the balcony, and put on some Slayer at max volume while I'm on my patio smoking. I barely hear her yelling over it at me and ignore her. There's a knock at the door that I happened to hear because I was grabbing a beer. Time to watch the world burn. I open the door and start with a friendly, "Hello, what can I do for you?" She starts going on about my music and how loud it is, to which I say, "Oh, is that bothering you? I can change it if you like." And I did. I went and borrowed an even louder speaker from my other neighbor and good friend, we'll call him Pete. So I turned that one up to max and put on some other more hardcore band with chugging guitars and endless screaming, to which I get another knock on my door. Same lady, still on a rant, to which I responded by pausing my music so that she could hear me very clearly. If my noise in broad daylight on a weekend is bothering you, how do you think I feel about your banging on the walls and yelling at your boyfriend at 3 a.m. on a work night? Or your loud music when I'm trying to go to sleep? Keep it down and we won't have this problem anymore. And I slammed the door in her face. I only dealt with it 2 more times. The last time she had company over, she never got loud again. I never saw the same people enter her apartment. And our second story. Brother-in-law doesn't take advice. So my brother-in-law recently got a new boat and has been very excited to show it off to all his family and friends. He's the type of guy who has an ego. Oftentimes it's harmless, and since he's seen as the successful one, it's accepted. Since I'm the youngest of the group, 29-year-old female, my opinion and knowledge is not taken as seriously. Whatever, no big deal. Anyway, my brother-in-law was getting his boat ready, and since this was maybe his 7th time taking it out, he thinks he's an expert. Prior to leaving the shore, he had the inner tube tied to the back of the boat. As someone who went boating a lot as a kid, I said, "Hey, shouldn't we pull in the tube so it doesn't get tangled?" Brother-in-law says, "No, it'll just pull along the back when we get out there." His boat, his way. So I sit back and watch. Well, who would have thought the rope to the inner tube gets tangled around the boat's propeller, and now we're dead in the water just a few feet offshore. There's brother-in-law, 2 women, 2 babies, 1 child, and me on the boat. In addition, my husband's on a jet ski, and brother-in-law's male best friend is on the second jet ski. Needless to say, the women on the boat and the men on the jet skis can't do much. So it's me and brother-in-law trying to fix the situation. On top of that, high wind is pushing us into the weeds and into the neighbor's dock. So I try untangling the rope, but not strong enough. I tell brother-in-law, "Hey, if you pull the rope this way, it'll come off." He says, "Nope, we gotta cut it." Again, his boat, his way. His male best friend jumps off the jet ski to assess the situation and says, "Yeah, no need to cut the rope," to which brother-in-law now agrees this is his best course of action. At this point, I jump on the neighbor's dock to prevent the boat from smashing into the side. After a few minutes, the rope is free and boat is good to go. Well, it gets better. Since we were in the weeds, male best friend starts the jet ski and sucks up debris from the lake, essentially stalling the engine. Best part, I'm on the boat drinking wine, watching this unfold in the distance, thinking this could have been prevented. So yeah, they had to park that jet ski on shore. Now we're ready for our voyage with the boat and 1 jet ski. After about an hour or so, we drop anchor in a cove, and moments later, male best friend flips the jet ski, The key hook to his jacket comes off, and now the key is lost. At this point, brother-in-law has accepted the key is gone and will need to tow the jet ski. He's clearly frustrated, all things considered. You can probably guess by now I found the key floating about 8 minutes later, and we were on our way home. In the end, nothing was ever said of the whole ordeal, but I knew if he'd let go of his ego, taken my common sense advice, then maybe the voyage wouldn't have been so disastrous. And our last story. Greedy aunt served after screwing my family over. This all begins about 3 years ago at my grandma's funeral. She passed away at the age of 73, leaving behind 2 kids, many grandkids, and quite a lot of real estate. When the paperwork tsunami regarding inheritance started, something began to smell fishy. My alive aunt was extremely hesitant in giving us the death certificate so we could start filing for inheritance. Things started to get complicated and confusing, so I had to take over all the paperwork and to help my mother out. I find out that the apartment my grandmother lived in, for some reason, no longer belonged to her, but was signed off to the kids of my aunt. Upon further inspection, I realized that most of my grandmother's belongings were signed off to my aunt long before my grandmother's death. First, I decided to speak to my mom. She told me that on the date the papers were signed, my grandmother was already in pretty bad shape. Dementia and Alzheimer's had already gotten the best of her, and she was not legally able to sign them. So I decided to go to my aunt, still not wanting to believe that she screwed us over. I sincerely believe that it was all an honest deal and asked her how it all happened. I'll never forget her response. I never thought someone could say this to a relative. She told me that it was none of my business. She intends to get everything she can, and the rest of the real estate that will be shared property she will force us out of. I was baffled. I couldn't understand how she could do something like this to my mother. I had to do something. The next day, I spoke with my mother. She was shocked and devastated, in tears. She also could not understand how her own sister could do such a thing, especially after all the things she did for her, like helping her make a career in sports, helping with money during hard times, etc. I knew we needed to go to court. The problem was that my mother was a working pensioner and still raising my 13-year-old brother, and I just spent all my savings on renovating her apartment. Money was an issue. Luckily, I made good friends with our company lawyer at work, and he offered to help me. We collected all the needed paperwork. He told me to document any further encounters with their family and to keep an eye out for anything fishy. After that, we sent a letter to my aunt saying that we'll dispute everything in court. This is where my life became hell. It all started out with threat calls from her sons. That's no biggie. I recorded all of the phone conversations. They found out where I work and live and started stalking me. Again, no biggie. A while back, my boss made me an offer for a driver to pick me up to and from work because the driver lived nearby me. About time I hit him up on that offer, so I did. One morning, I wake up and get ready for work. My driver's downstairs waiting for me. I put on a coat and head downstairs. I open the door of my apartment complex and get hit in the face by my oldest cousin. He threatens me again and flees the scene. The driver runs up, helps me up, and tells me that it was all recorded on the car's front cam. He calls my boss and takes me to the hospital. The next day, I take the video and all the phone conversations to the police. They accept everything. When the police contacted my aunt, searching for her son that punched me, she was livid. She called me and spat threats in the phone. I reminded her that her son is already in trouble for threatening me. She hangs up. About a week later, I wake up in the middle of the night from a loud banging on my door. As I'm walking to the door, it gives in and flies open. 2 large men walk in, stating this is now their apartment as well. Handing me the papers, they said, "If you want to remain healthy, you should pack your crap and go." I call the police. Police come, check the paperwork, and it's totally fine. Turned out my aunt hired professional inconveniencers. They make money by forcing people to move out of shared homes. She gave them a part of her right of ownership, and they were legally allowed to move in. Next 3 months, I routinely had to pick my door because they kept changing the locks. Had to deal with constant loud music, dirt, and filth in my own house, barely any sleep. After 3 months, they gave up and left. Seeing that this didn't work, my cousin's family decided to desperately F with me. One night, one of them walked into my apartment complex and started spraying pepper spray at my door to try and lure me out. Unfortunately for them, I was cleaning the house and doing some minor work after the goons they hired. All of my doors were pretty insulated with rags and towels to prevent concrete dust flying everywhere. I barely smelled the pepper spray. Court was due the next day. I barely convinced my mother to ask for her sister to be eliminated from inheriting anything. After I showed the video in court and audio of them threatening and assaulting me, it was done. The court ruled in our favor. Upon returning from court, I went to the police to tell them about the pepper spray incident. I was rushed into a room and questioned. Turned out my elderly neighbor died from lung complications caused by the pepper spray. Here I am today, just returned from the notary where my mother signed all the real estate to her name. I got a significant amount of money for assault and threats, and my piece of crap aunt is left with her tiny apartment and a son in prison for assault, threats of violence, and homicide. Her second son was fired from the rescue team and is no longer able to work for any government or social structures, and he doesn't know how to do anything else. They're bankrupt, and it serves them right. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.